ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take this moment to say thank you for listening to the Real ResQ podcast. It means a lot to me that you enjoy these stories as much as I do. Since the start of this podcast, we've had a lot of support from all over the world. It has been amazing. Now, we have companies joining our team that also want to say thank you for all that you are doing out there standing the watch. These companies are offering discounts on their products as a way to support the rescue community and those tuning into the Real ResQ podcast. Just go to therealresq.com, click on sponsors, and see these incredible offers for yourself. This episode of the Real ResQ podcast is brought to you by Breeze Eastern, the world's only dedicated helicopter hoist and winch provider. Access, because when lives are at stake and conditions are challenging, clear communication is of the utmost importance. SR3 Rescue Concepts, because you don't know what you don't know. And VersaLifts, to be your best, you need to squat your best. Breeze Eastern, they dedicate themselves to our helicopter rescue world. Since the very first helicopter rescue in November of 1945, Breeze Eastern has designed and manufactured superior rescue hoist solutions. While much of the technology and the unique mission requirements have changed over the past 75 years, their commitment to the rescuers, the operators, and those being rescued has not. Contact them today by visiting them at breeze-eastern.com. The Axness PNG wireless ICS system can bring cutting-edge wireless intercommunication system technology to any aircraft. The PNG system can be fully integrated into an existing ICS system or can be carried on and off as a mobile base station. They can go anywhere at any time on any aircraft. Plus, with the strongest and most robust waterproof handheld in the market, this system can take a hit and keep working. Their wireless intercom systems are designed to enhance situational awareness through improved communication capability. This system brings superior noise canceling technology to eliminate rotor wash and engine noise from your ICS. The Axness PNG wireless system is currently deployed in more than 1,800 public safety, air ambulance, and search and rescue aircraft worldwide. I have personally used the Axness system in 4 different countries and on 5 different airframes. It is awesome. If you want more information, contact them today at axness.com. That's AXNES.com. You just make sure you tell them Quinny sent me. SR3 Rescue Concepts is a training company that can help your helicopter training. They train daytime, nighttime, aerial firefighting, hoist, long line, fast rope, rappel, and more. They can assist your program with standardization and safety checks or just an FAA annual refresher. With the certified flight instructor pilots and experienced crew, they are ready to help your agency keep up to date with current techniques, rules, regulations, and equipment. Plus, right now, SR3 is offering 10% off anything in their web store with the promo code, all capital letters, Real ResQ, REALRESQ. Plus, they are offering another 10% from their partners Petzl and their equipment. All you got to do is send an email to info@sr3rescueconcepts.com. Mention this podcast, the Real ResQ podcast, and they'll take care of the rest. And VersaLifts. When you're at the gym working on your squats, building your leg strength for the next rescue mission, depth matters. If you're like me, getting below parallel on your squats is tough. Well, allow me to introduce VersaLifts heel inserts. These gems have become one of my new favorite accessories in my gym bag. Simply place them into your regular training shoe, either on top or underneath the insole, and bam! You've got a heel lift benefit of a weightlifting shoe, but the comfort and flexibility of your regular trainers. So the next time your workout just has heavy squats, grab your V2 strength inserts. Or how about a run, pull up, push up, air squat, and another run? Grab your V2 endurance inserts. Or my own personal workout of running, clusters, and ring muscle ups. Grab your original V2 inserts and go crush it. Check them out today at vlifts.com or on Instagram at Versalist. And when you're ready to get a few pair of your own, make sure you get your 10% off with the Real ResQ discount code. Squat well, friends. Coming up next on the Real ResQ, we are joined by the author of the book, Brotherhood of the Fin. This guy comes to us with a couple more stories that are not in the book, which were pretty exciting for me personally. So please welcome our next guest, United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 104, Mr. Jerry Hoover. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real ResQ. Today, I've got another one of my Finn brothers with me. That's right. Today, United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 104, Mr. Jerry Hoover. What's up, brother? How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Great. Good to see you, Jason.
Oh, man, it's good to see you. I know you and I talked a little bit offline, but you and we actually haven't seen each other in almost 23 years because I was an airman in the swimmer shop in East City, and you were, I believe, the first class of the shop.
That's correct. Yeah. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
Right. Long time.
You know what? You still made an impression because I still remember things you said. So,
oh, Lord. I hope it was good stuff, though.
It's all good stuff, man. It's all good stuff. You know what? I remember all of you guys so well, just with all the stuff that you guys trained and set me up to get to A school and get to swimmer school and just freaking rock it. We had a powerful class, but man, I put a lot of it on you guys to prepare and get me ready. And thanks, man. Thanks, man.
Yeah. No problem, man. It was a learning experience for both of us. Trust me, man. Trust me.
Oh, no doubt. That's funny. Well, I'll tell you what, Jerry, if you don't mind, before we get into some of your rescues and stuff, would you just give a little background about who you are, how you joined the Coast Guard, and what brought you to be a rescue swimmer?
Okay. Was born, raised in Florida, grew up around the Coast Guard, seeing them, not, being boarded by them or whatnot, but interacting with the Coast Guard. And I tried at college for a little bit, knew it was not for me. Definitely not for me. I was more seeking adventure and that sort of thing. And so I wanted to do something fun, man. I wanted to get out there and just have a blast. And so I joined the Coast Guard in 1986. And the swimmer program at that time was less than a year old. And so when I heard about it, I immediately signed up. I knew that had my name written all over it. And everybody was telling me it was not humanly possible, that people don't actually make it through that training. And
oh my God, that's so true.
To me, that was just laying down the gauntlet, man. I'm like, oh yeah, bring it on. So I'm on my way. I sign up. I end up in rescue swimmer school in 87, and they were pumping us through 18 to a class every 2 weeks, because the Coast Guard was trying to bring the swimmer program online to comply with the congressional mandate to do so. Right. So, yeah, we were still suffering a lot of attrition rate, and the Coast Guard didn't have its own swimmer program back then either. So they were still sending us to the Navy's rescue swimmer program, where they train their swimmers to rescue downed aviators that crash off of aircraft carriers. And so their training really wasn't tailored for us, but it was all that existed at the time. And we started with 33 people, 6 Coasties, and the rest were Navy. We graduated 5 Coasties and 1 Navy.
Oh, and, dang.
It was brutal, man. It was brutal. And there was a time there, where I wasn't sure I was going to make it, because that was back when they were still having people ring the bell when they quit. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
So I know about it, but that was not me. That was not, like, we didn't have to do that when I went through school. So.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty intense. But eventually got to that point, and I think everybody back then did. Don't know what it's like now, but back then you got to the point where these guys are not going to make me quit, no matter what. you have to carry me out in a body bag, but if that's what it takes, but I'm not quitting. And I think that's kind of what they were hoping for, you know. They would kind of get you to that mentality. Once you have achieved that mentality, then they knew, you know, all right, this guy's going to make it. This guy's going to do it. And so, yeah, we graduated, and they sent me to New Orleans after that, man. It was game on.
Nice. So in New Orleans, that was
Mhm.
where you had your very first rescue. Ooh.
Oh, yeah, it was very first rescue. Not only that, it was the summer program was brought online. Farmer and Scott Dyer, who was a first class at the time, not the Master Chief, and but Master Chief Farmer was came down with Scott Dyer, and they implemented the program. And a few months later, I went on my first rescue as a rescue swimmer, and it was the first rescue New Orleans Air Station New Orleans ever did. And it wasn't like,
Wait,
you know,
I'm sorry. You were the very first.
the very
Like,
first rescue swimmer to ever
rescue.
do. Yes.
Oh, no way,
In
Jerry,
New
that's
Orleans.
sick.
Yeah. Right.
First rescue and first rescue swimmer operational SAR case out of New Orleans, all in one.
That is correct.
Dude,
Yep,
that's
that is
sick.
correct. Yeah. Yeah. It was, and it was, you know, it wasn't like off the hook, but it was monumental because it was the first of everything. And I had a master chief, a leading chief, that said, "You'll never jump out of helicopters, Jerry. That's ridiculous. You can just get that out of your head." That's what he was telling me when I got there. You know, and he was 62 at the time. Yeah. So we went out to Lake Pontchartrain. Lake Pontchartrain is a fairly good sized lake just north of New Orleans, about 20 miles plus across. And we got a report of an overdue boat and learned that they were overdue because they had gotten drunk and stole a boat and never came back. So we go out flying around doing a search pattern, and sure enough, we see this guy who's tied himself between a gas can and a ice chest. And he was just hanging on the rope in the middle. What kind of shape is he? He's been out in the water for 24 hours. And it's kind of cool. It wasn't cold, but it was cool. I'm like, yeah, man, sure, sounds good. So we go through the procedure. I free fall in. I swim over to him, and you know, I grab him, and the guy's like, "I can't leave my ice chest, man. I can't leave my ice chest. I don't know what he had in it." And I'm like, "No problem, man. I'll come back and get it. You just let go, and I'll take care of you." So I convinced him to let go, and I start swimming. I got him in a cross chest. It's not heavy seas or stormy or anything, and I give my flight mechanic, a young lady named Joy Freeman, the thumbs up. "I'm ready, man. Send me the basket. Let's do this." Right? And she doesn't move. The helicopter doesn't move, just stays in a hover. I'm like, what the hell? Did she not see me? So I give her the basket signal, you know, with my arms and the thumbs up. Still nothing. Next thing I know, she's waving behind. I'm looking at her. She's waving behind the helicopter. Right? And I don't see what she's waving at because I'm at water level. My head's at the water level. She's waving frantically behind the helicopter. Next thing I know, the pilot takes the helicopter and tilts it to the right and downward and just slides backwards away from me. And I'm like, what the hell, man? Anyway, what he had done is he had taken the rotor blades to stop the speedboat that was headed straight for me and my survivor to keep him from running us over, right? Just took his rotor blades and scared the daylights out of the guy that was driving the boat, which was the goal. And so the guy pulled back on his throttles, and that's when I saw him, you know, settle in the water, probably, I don't know, 100, 150 yards from us. And so, man, that was first rescue ever. Almost got chopped to pieces by boat, except for a flight mechanic that was on her toes, kept me alive, man.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. After that, nothing, man. Got the guy cleared, told him on the radio, "Get out of here. We don't need your help right now. We got people in the water." Pull us up. On we go, looking for the other two missing guys after we dropped that guy at the lakefront, drop him off with an ambulance and the police.
Nice.
And, yeah, that was my first rescue ever. First rescue in Air Station New Orleans.
Oh my gosh, Jerry, what the heck? That is awesome. That is so funny. Dude, like, I hear it all the time, but it still never ceases to amaze me, the shit that we have to deal with and go through. Dude, I never would have thought of that.
Yeah. And it's flat calm too, man. You know, when you're a swimmer, you're like, you know, you want to be tested, man. You want to go, heavy seas and storming and a hurricane. No, flat, calm day, man. Beautiful day.
Bro, I love it. Oh my gosh. Man, I love it. Well, thanks for sharing that, man. That's hilarious. All right. So now here's what I want to do. You
Hit me.
while you're in the Coast Guard, you earned 2 air medals. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to read both of them and then go over them. And then we have another one to talk about after that. But we're going to get into that in a minute. So let me go into the air medals, and then if you don't mind, just give us the real story, like what actually happened. All right. All right. Here we go. Citation to accompany the award of the Air Medal to AST-1 Gerald R. Hoover, United States Coast Guard. Petty Officer Hoover is cited for meritorious achievement on the night of 16 September 1999 while participating on aerial flight, serving as rescue swimmer aboard Coast Guard 860-6026. The mission resulted in the life-saving rescue of 14 men, women, and children during the flood relief operations during Hurricane Floyd in eastern North Carolina. The helicopter crew was the first Coast Guard helo on scene when the Tar River rose 40 feet, stranding thousands of survivors and cutting off power to 3 counties. Immediately after arrival at Rocky Mount, North Carolina, the rescue crew located a group of persons in a lumber warehouse exposed to the elements and surrounded by rising floodwaters. Petty Officer Hoover was deployed by harness and conducted the rescue of 7 persons by basket. While being recovered on the final hoist, he struck the warehouse roof but was not injured. On the second sortie, he was lowered to a roof of a 2-story barn to evaluate the condition of 6 persons trapped by 10-foot floodwater. His third sortie was a deployment to the back deck of a house surrounded by floodwater with 4 children and 6 adults. 3 adults needed medical attention. One of the patients was paralyzed and confined to a wheelchair. With the rescue helicopter running low on fuel, he triaged the survivors, and with the time available to him, rescued all the children and 3 adults. Petty Officer Hoover's courage, judgment, and devotion to duty are most heartily committed in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Coast Guard. Jerry! So here's what's so cool about this, right? Not only do I know a little bit about this, but I was in East City as an airman when you guys were all out going to do all these rescues. So all you guys came back in the shop and all I heard was like rescue story, rescue story, rescue story. And it was like, I was jonesing to get to school. Like, come on, get me there. I want to get in the action.
Right.
Awesome.
Right. That's the way everybody feels. They want to be in part of that, man.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, you were there, Shannon Scaff, Jocko Johnson, Bob Florisi, Darren Reeves, all you guys were doing some mad operations during that. So holy cow, man. This in particular, like solid work. Air medal, 14 people. Dude. All right, run us through, man. 3 sorties.
Yeah, it was we actually set up coordinated with the state police, set up a landing zone and close to the Tar River Basin that was on the interstate. They shut down obviously interstates for every direction around this the Tar River Basin. And so we set up and coordinated with them and dropped the patients off at places that were above the flood zone. But the flood zone was really, really massive. I'd never seen anything like it before that. The only thing that rivaled it was New Orleans. The thing that we got when we got there, the whole crew was a little overwhelmed with how many people we saw flashing lights at us. Everywhere we looked, we saw flashlights hitting us. And so we were trying to determine how to get down in there and not, put me in a treetop or or worse yet, through a power line, which is what we were really worried about when we got down there. And so we eventually just, as we were talking it over as a crew, I'm like, sir, let's just get in there and see what we can do. And he's like, you're right, let's do it. And that's when I went down to the warehouse. And the warehouse was one of those where it was raised up enough that semi trucks can back down to it, right? So people had been driving around trying to get out of the flooding, but the flooding was still coming up so fast that they eventually gave up and drove up one of these ramps into this warehouse, lumber warehouse. And when he pulled into a hover, man, he had to keep me off. There were power lines. He had to keep me off the power lines, and he sent pallets flying everywhere. It was like, dodging. And thank goodness the flight mechanic knew what he was doing, because he yanked me up out of the way and then put me back down. And if you're on the end of the hook, you don't have any choice. You're just along for the ride, man. So I get down there, yeah, the people are like, yeah, we couldn't outrun the flooding. We were trying to drive to higher ground, and this is where we got. And so we're standing there, and I was telling them what to expect. The first one was a couple of kids and a mom, and the kids were, I don't know, preteens. I had 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. And I told the older brother that I'm going to put you and the little brother in there. It's up to the older brother to take care of them. And they were my first voice out of there. Mom was second, obviously, so she can get up there and keep them calm in the helicopter. And then all the rest of the people that were there in the warehouse, and they didn't even know each other. They were, as far as they were concerned, they were just escaping. And we were probably only there, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes tops. And man, the water had risen 6 inches in that 15 minutes. So it was coming, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but in 15 minutes, in that large of space, that was a lot. I mean, you're talking miles and miles of basin. Wow. So it was really, really flooding fast. So that was it. And then it was still it wasn't perfectly calm yet. It wasn't like bad, like the hurricane was still there, but it was still batting us around a little bit. And I think it was the additional flying pallets that made the pilot move around a little bit in order to try and prevent me from being hit by one of these, by debris flying, right? And that's when I slammed into the building, and that took my breath away, man. It was a good solid oomph, I get up there, man, they're all freaking out. They think they killed me or something. I'm like, no, man, no, we're good. Let's go. Let's do it.
Wrecking ball, baby. That's all you want.
Yeah, let's do it. And we did, man. So we just jumped from there. And the whole time I was doing, the co-pilot's setting up a spot where we can go and land and drop off these people and go back and get more people. In other words, I don't know if people know how important it is for everybody in the helicopter to do their part. But yeah, he had everything all set so that by the time they got my happy ass back in the helicopter, man, we had a place to go and people designated to pick them up and everything. So what that allowed us to do is drop them off to more advanced care to be taken care of while we go and do more rescues. So the second spot we got to, we saw a bunch of people in the second story of a barn, and they put me down on the roof, and I just hung over and talked to them through the open hay door that they have on second levels of barns. Yeah. And they're like, we don't want to leave, man. This is home. I'm like, all right, you sure? Because you might die. They're like, yeah, we're not going. I'm like, okay. So I relayed that to the pilots. And then we went on our merry way, man. And it was still overwhelming. Now, as a sidebar, what we did not know in the background was happening is our executive officer, since you were there with me, Commander Rod Ansley, was back rallying more assets than I had ever seen rallied in a shorter period of time than I'd ever seen. Right? We're talking Army, Air Force, Marine helicopters, everybody that he could, man. And he was getting them to Air Station Elizabeth City and setting them up and explaining to them in the op center what we had and why we needed that many assets and all that kind of stuff. So he, I just want to give him a shout out because he did a phenomenal, ridiculous, over the top job. So anyway, we go down to the deck, and the deck is supposedly quite a ways from any floodwaters. They had never seen floodwaters in this neighborhood before, so they were freaking out. And so I get down in there and I go inside, and that's when I see the guy in the wheelchair. I'm like, oh, so there's not anything you can do. You can do what you can do, So we end up getting the triage, get the medical concerns out of the way first, including the one in the wheelchair, and put them in a basket on the deck, and up they went. But by the time that had happened, the water got so deep, now it's thigh deep over the deck. So I grabbed a ladder and put it up on the side of the house from the deck to the roof and brought everybody else up to the roof so that we would not be underwater when we completed this rescue. So,
Oh my gosh.
the rest of them we hoisted from the roof in order to get them out, man. And that's when, we realized, I get back in the helicopter and I realized all these other assets in there, all these other helicopters are in the air. We'd been doing this for a little while. And they wanted bag limits. We were getting close. So they wanted the helicopter back at Air Station Elizabeth City so they could put a fresh crew in it and fuel it up and check it out, make sure it was good to go. And me, man, I was pumped. I was ready. I was rocking, man. And everybody else was too. I mean, we did not want to go back, but that wasn't what the order came over the radio. So the pilot took us back. We landed, and Commander Ansley, the XO, he's out there on a ramp, pointing here and doing stuff, doing his thing, making sure that, people were being rescued. And I'm like, Commander, you got to let me go back, man. Just put me on another helicopter. Just let me go. Just let me go, man. I'm watching. And this is like, I don't know, by that time it's like 4:00 in the morning. And he's like, nope. Listen, Jerry, you go home and get 8 hours of sleep and you come back and I'll put you in a helicopter. And, I wasn't happy about it. I was ready to go, but that was adrenaline talking.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
But he was right, man. I went home and I went into a blackout sleep and I was out.
Oh, I love it.
Come back the next day, man, and everything was still going strong, still just blasting, man. Amazing. And little funny side story too, man, is Army shows up and they want to know everything, man. They want to know, how many people and where and coordinates and where we're landing and where they're getting fuel. I mean, they want to know everything, right? And the jarheads come walking in with their helicopter, and Commander Ansley's telling them, yeah, we got all these people. It's over here, so and so, and they're like, "Yeah, all right, we're on our way." And they walk right back out and hop in their helicopter, man. Two totally different reactions.
Oh, that's so funny.
Thumbs up to the jarheads, man. Thumbs up.
That would be the Marines for those that are not military jarheads. Oh, that's funny. I like that.
Yep. Good times, man. Good times.
Man, well done to you and your entire crew. That's freaking awesome. Like I said, I remember that. I was there. I just so happened, like, I'm in the shop hearing you guys come back and tell all the stories, and I'm like, come on, why am I not like a swimmer yet? So good stuff, man. Well, thanks, dude. Appreciate that. All right,
yeah.
Ready? Let's go on to the next one. Second Air Medal. Citation to accompany the award of the Air Medal. Gold Star in lieu of second to AST-1 Gerald R. Hoover, United States Coast Guard. Pastor Hoover is cited for heroism while participating in aerial flight on Coast Guard 860 helicopters from 1 through 4 September 2005 in support of Hurricane Katrina rescue operations. On 1 September, Pastor Hoover courageously put himself in harm's way to rescue 13 survivors from their flooded homes, including 8 children. Demonstrating exceptional rescue skills, Pastor Hoover overcame numerous environmental hazards by conning the pilots around deadly power lines and trees while safely utilizing improvised deployment and visual communication techniques. On 02 September, with rising water surrounding a paralyzed, trapped man in his home, Pastor Hoover quickly improvised and made a decision to remove the home's window and the surrounding wall with a rescue axe. Racing against time, Pastor Hoover rapidly cleared a large egress point through the wallboard, studs, and electrical conduit, and safely extracted and hoisted the distraught victim along with his nurse, who were then promptly delivered to a safe evacuation site. Responding to frantic calls for help, Pastor Hoover was lowered to the nearby hospital where over 200 desperate patients awaited their rescue. Working with the hospital personnel, Pastor Hoover assisted with the successful triage, preparation, and rooftop hoist of over 170 frantic patients over a 6-hour period. The next day, Pastor Hoover assisted with the medical evacuation of 5 critically ill patients from Algiers Point, including a serious injured woman who was non-ambulatory, and her 2 children, an elderly woman, a man stranded on a roof of a submerged van, as well as countless others. While conducting rescue operations, Petty Officer Hoover provided a calming voice of reason, conveyed to the survivors and other rescue personnel exactly what steps were needed to be taken to ensure their safe rescue. Petty Officer Hoover's actions, aeronautical skills, and valor were instrumental in the unprecedented rescue of over 200 survivors. His courage, judgment, and devotion to duty are most heartily commended in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Coast Guard. Jerry, I can't say it enough. I was not in Hurricane Katrina, but what you guys did down there was insane. My gosh, over 200 people, Jerry. What? Dude.
It was interesting. That's the only word I can tell you, man. It was like
you and everybody else.
Yeah. It was like nothing anybody had ever seen before or since. I think the total number of people rescued was depending on who you ask, between 31,000 and 33,000 people, which makes it the largest search and rescue operation of mankind's ever undertaken, ever.
Wow.
So yeah, it was insane. And there's so much, man, that they don't put in those awards when they write that stuff up.
You know, that's why I do this podcast, right?
Right. It was one of those things where we showed up and it was so much worse than what we thought, you know. And Joel Sayers, another swimmer brother of ours, he was one of the first ones on scene, and we watched him on television trying to hack open a roof because people were trapped in their attic because they kept going up as floodwaters kept coming up, and a lot of them ended up in their attics. And so you know, some of the stuff that we were doing was making sure everybody had an axe, which was fortuitous. By the time that they started talking about that paraplegic that we got out of the second floor of his home, we had made sure everybody had axes and started actually outfitting some people with chainsaws. So we had an axe on the helicopter, and we developed this what we called a double deployment method. It didn't exist, man. But to get 2 swimmers down fairly quickly to the same spot to save time, we would just hook our harnesses to each other as if we were doing a rescue of somebody, a civilian, and then put down simultaneously. And so what they didn't put in there was Scott Rady and I both went down to this second floor window because this lady was hanging out the window waving at us. And so, you know, they put us down, and Scott and I clambered through the window, and there's this they don't put this in there. This guy weighed at least 500 pounds if he was an ounce. No, I'm not lying. And she explained to us of him about being paralyzed in his special wheelchair that was oversized to accommodate him. And it was, you know, I'm looking at Scott, and Scott's looking at me. We're back and forth. Like, what the hell are we going to do? They're on the second floor because the first floor is underwater. The water's to the top of the stairs. There's no going out the bottom or anything like that. And the nurse had stayed with him despite the fact that he told her that she could leave and evacuate with everybody else that was evacuating. So Scott and I looked at each other, and I'm like, I don't know, man, let's just figure it out. And so I called up to the helicopter, I said, and explained to them what we were doing and why. And I told them I needed the axe, and they sent it down in the basket. And I look at Scott, and he looks at me, and we're like, yep, we're going through that wall, man, right there. And so I just started hacking. We hacked everything, and studs and window and, you know, drywall and outside wall. It didn't matter, man. We were cutting through it with this axe. And Scott and I took turns because we opened up, because you got to remember now, 500 pounds is not little. It wasn't a little opening that we cut. You probably could have installed a sliding glass door to opening we put in that wall. So we got that thing.
That's open. Awesome.
Yeah. We got that thing open, and I called him on the radio and told him what we had, and we needed a basket. And it then had to explain that the flight mechanic was not going to get this individual out of the basket by himself. That was not happening. So he put down a basket. We barely got the guy in it, and I would say there was lots of parts of him hanging over the side of the basket.
Oh my gosh.
And that was not easy. It took everything Scott and I had, man. We were just sweat just pouring off of us. We were both in wetsuits. And it was everything we could to get the guy out of there. And because the basket was now filled with an individual that was not coming out, right? Now we still had the nurse and me and Scott to get up to the helicopter. So I explained to her what we were going to do, and they were going to send down the strop, and I was going to wrap it around her, keep her arms, don't put your hands up to fend off. I'll take care of that and all that kind of stuff. And Scott went up with her, right? Up and away she goes. And she did really good. But we still had the issue of getting the guy out of the basket and what to do with him then. So I decided, well, we're going to grab the wheelchair too, a special wheelchair built for him. And so when I come up, I hook up the arm and I strap my hook to the wheelchair, so at least we could get him out of the basket and into the wheelchair when we landed at the zone. That one took a lot out of me, man, because we were working. That was not an easy rescue right there, And it was later on, Scott and I kind of got on the same availability cycle, because we had 93 or 97 swimmers there, which a third of all rescue swimmers on active duty in Mobile. That was our base of operations. And Scott and I kind of got on the same schedule. So the next night, we hit the deck, and this hospital, we're probably, 6 stories up, maybe 6 stories up, and to the deck area where all the air conditioners and all the stuff that controls the hospital. And we go through, we land because we see people out there on this deck space, don't land, but they put us down. Scott and I, again, double lift straight down to the deck. We go over and some guy there is I forget if he was either sheriff's department or an EMT or something, but he was in the hospital because he had slid his foot wide open earlier doing rescues on their own. And he had his foot all bandaged up in one of those boots, right? Yeah. And he explained to us how many people and what kind of condition, because we're talking critical condition here, man. A lot of them. And then he started talking about, what to do with all the dead bodies. And so Scott and I conferred real quick and decided, triage dictates that we can't do anything for the dead. So we tell them that and tell them that the point blank, we need to get the survivors out. And so we stacked a few of the dead out of the way where the survivors would not see them, right? And then explain the situation to the aircraft above and coordinated with our aircraft commander and said, hey, man, what we'll do is Scott and I will stay here on the deck. If you'll just send us helicopters, we'll fill them up. No matter who you send us, Army, Navy, Marine, it doesn't matter. Coast Guard, we'll put people in it till we run out of people to put in. And he's like, yeah, that sounds good.
Dude, that is sick.
I did this, and sure enough, man, we started stacking people, and we would take the most serious injured. We're doing the best triage we could, and we grabbed a couple of the nurses that were still there to give us an idea of, okay, who's the worst off, who needs to go the soonest. And they really rallied and did a good job. And whoever that guy was with the cut foot really did a good job as well. And we were evacuating just so many, man. And they were bringing them to us in wheelchairs, but they were ambulatory. We could walk. And then one guy I was just carrying him along, older guy, and he's like, dude, I just had open heart surgery like 48 hours ago. You got to go a little slower. And it didn't dawn on me that I was trying to rush all these people. And, they might be in pretty bad shape. So, I laid him over my shoulders like that so I could carry him so he didn't have to walk to the basket. And we did, man. We loaded up helicopter after helicopter. And our pilots were phenomenal in getting us more helicopters over. We had an Army helicopter stop by. We had Coast Guard. We had, I think, one Marine Corps helicopter. We had everybody, man. And Scott and I just worked our asses off for 8 hours straight, getting people out of the hospital.
Oh my God!
It got to the point where there was still a handful left, but the worst of the worst were gone. We'd gotten them rescued and out of there. And our aircraft commander finally came back, and he's like, "We got to go. Y'all's time is up. We'll get another crew here to finish this." And Scott and I got hoisted up in the helicopter, and before we even were fully transitioned to forward flight, there was another one pulling into a hover over this deck. And we did have to do a little improvising because the helicopter rotor wash was so intense. It was blowing metal stuff around, like that. And so there was one point where Scott and I stopped rescuing people long enough to rip some of the loose metal free because it was just flapping in the severe rotor wash. And we didn't want it to cut loose and kill any of us. So we broke it free and worked it back and forth and tossed it off the building into the water, so it wouldn't be flying around while we were doing this. So it was intense. It was physical effort, man. And honestly, shout out to Scott Rady. He's a beast, man. He was freaking beast. Love that guy. Yeah, but then we went on. Oh man, there was one. This is day 4, right? Day 4. We've been in wetsuits for 3 days. We're drinking 5 gallons of water, never taking a piss on an 8-hour sortie. It was brutal because we were sweating so hard and working so hard, man. So day 4, I'm like, I'm going to go down to rooftops. You care if I wear? I'm talking to the aircraft commander. You care if I wear a flight suit? And he's like, no, man, sounds good. So the first house that we come to where we see people waving and stuff. This is day 4 now. Yeah, remember the people been there for a while, right? They see a kid and he's waving, and so they drop me down to the roof, and the kid is standing in chest high water. I guess he's about 12, 13. And it's just his neighborhood, and he's like, there's somebody trapped inside the house, and she can't move. She's been there in this water all this time. And I'm thinking to myself, you're in water, your body's going to eventually either absorb water or get rid of water and dehydrate, one of the two, depending if it's fresh or salt and pollutants and stuff. And so I'm thinking to myself, she's got to be dead. So I'm like, look at myself in my flight suit and boots, and I'm like, crap. So my first time not wearing a shorty for these rescues, and I got to get in water on the first rescue of an 8-hour sortie. So I get into water and I go inside. Sure enough, the lady's there, and she's in bad shape. She's in really bad shape, and I tell the pilot that, and so he hoists her up and takes her immediately while I take the kid. And I'm like, dude, anybody else in your neighborhood still on the ground? He's like, yeah, let me show you. Right. Oh, so wow. we started wading through all the water, going door to door and pulling people out and getting them ready. That's when some of the I don't know who it was, which branch it was, but some of the military amphibious vehicles were driving up and down the streets at that point. And cool. We waved them down. We're like, come on over here. And we got a bunch of people into their amphibious boat, vehicle. So yeah, so done. I never caught the kid's name, but this is his neighborhood, man, and he's taking care of all these people.
Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then the guy off the rooftop of the van had been there for, it's just still day 4, for 4 days, trapped on top of this van. And
oh my God.
And the reason I think that he hadn't been rescued, it was so hard to get to him because he was under trees and power lines both. And we're talking to the pilots and the mech, and we're all trying to figure out if we could thread my happy ass through there and get him. And I'm like, might as well, let's do it. And sure enough, mech pilot, outstanding, put me right down through the treetop, right through the power lines. Put me right on top of this guy without knocking him off the van, by the way. That was the other thing I discussed, was having a high enough hover, right, that the rotor wash didn't throw the guy off the top of the van. So yeah, that was pretty intense because I wasn't sure we were gonna be able to pull it off and get it, but we did. So that was an intense one, even though it was fairly straightforward. And once I got him, I told him what to expect, and he was kind of in a daze. He did not acknowledge anything I said, man. Nothing. So I just wrapped the strap around him and hooked up to got the hook hooked up to it, and off we went. And that was pretty cool. So day 4, we land to get gas, right? And the pilot's giving me a hard time, and I had changed in my wetsuit, and he's like, "Are you tired yet?" And so of course I give him the look,
Yeah. I'm not tired.
Yeah,
he's tired.
Yeah, it's 4 days, man, and I lost count how many people we did, man, how many people we pulled out, and it was the sky was polluted with helicopters, man. There was an AWACS over top keeping aircraft controls so that people didn't run into each other. The rescue at Algiers Point, we landed in a parking lot, and it was tight around the power lines, but we were waved down by people in this. It was a building where they land the ferry, right? And the ferry was up on the dike, so it was a higher ground, and the parking lot right next to it for people that park to use the ferry. So I go in there, there's like 200 people. And I'm like, I walk in, my eyes just bulge. I'm like, holy crap, how can there still be 200 people this late into the rescue? And then they start telling me about who's injured, who needs to go and stuff. And I start doing some eval, but I call up the pilot and I tell him how many people we got. And so he can start coordinate more aircraft. And so I get the worst, 6 or 7 of the worst. I can't remember, man. It was a bunch. And we stacked them in there in the helicopter. And I started to go back out, and the pilot said, no, man, we got another one coming right behind us. As soon as we take off, they're going to land. And it was tight, 860, in there between the power lines, maybe 10, 15 feet between all the rotor tips and the power lines, all the way around. It was tight. So kudos to a pilot, Anyway, we pull up and out and roll over, and we watch this sea stallion. You're familiar with a sea stallion, right? Big,
yeah, big, huge,
big helicopter, man. And that guy comes screaming in there like he's doing a combat rescue, and just slams that thing in between them power lines into that parking lot. And I'm like, holy shit, man! Holy crap! He didn't run into those power lines. I turn around like I'm not worthy, because holy crap, dude! I mean, he must have had inches between the rotor blades and them power lines. I don't know, but we knew he could take 50 people, so more power to him, man. More power to him. And then after that I left. I didn't see what happened, but yeah, that was an interesting time.
Yeah, no doubt. And like I've said it many times, you guys did an amazing job, and the reputation from everybody that was down there, just you kept the bar high. It was awesome. So,
all right. So last story about Katrina that I want to share is it was the axe, right? When you see the axe, Katrina 2005 or whatever it says on there, I forget what it says on there, and all the rescue swimmers that came through signed it, right? Now that axe is currently in Connecticut at New Haven at the Academy. It's on display up there. But that axe was, and I'd like to say this, it was my idea and it was my artwork on the axe. So
yes,
as we were sitting there waiting, for the next available aircraft to go, we were all signing the axe. So I'm pleased to know that my artwork, my handiwork is up there.
Yeah.
It was interesting, dude. Oh, and when we come back from a rescue, the doc head was so worried about what we were exposed to that he gave us preemptive antibiotics. All the swimmers that were there were on preemptive antibiotics because of what we were being exposed to. You're talking about caskets floating up out of graveyards and, propane lines bursting and sewage lines and all that kind of stuff. And there were some stories. Stories. We'd get back on the ramp, and they would have somebody stand like 30 feet away from us and strip out of our wetsuits totally naked on the ramp while they blasted us with a water hose. So whatever we were contaminated with, they wouldn't get on. It wouldn't be anywhere around them. So interesting. Good times, man. Good times.
Bro, that's awesome. Well done. Man, again, to everybody that was involved in Katrina, my hat's off to you guys. It was freaking amazing. So awesome. Thanks for sharing the stories, Jerry. This is freaking great.
Yeah, man.
All right. So now I'm going to not even move to a later time in your career. What I want to do is let me do a little shout out to you right now, because you wrote a book, and the book is called Brotherhood of the Fin. And that's all about rescues that you did throughout your time in the Coast Guard. Right?
Plus a couple extras. I had Al Yates rescue in there where he rescued a medevac of somebody who got wrapped up in a man. And that was brutal.
He actually came on this podcast and talked about it. So if anybody hasn't listened to Al Yates' story, that was
in there. And then the night Shannon Scaff and Troy Lundgren and those guys, they did a rescue of like 3 different sailboats that got blasted off of a storm offshore. North Carolina. That was in there.
So I have,
yeah, that's a good one.
Shannon Scaff has been on here. He's talked about that. I'm still trying to get Troy Lundgren. So if Troy, if you're listening right now, it's your turn.
Troy Lundgren.
Yeah.
He's we used to call him the Gladiator, right?
Oh yeah, totally. What was he? 6'4"?
He's a beast, man. Yeah,
ridiculous.
He was an animal. Yeah.
But you know what? I absolutely loved working out with him too, because it was, he was just, I looked up to him quite a bit. And like when we got to the gym, I was like, damn, man, that dude.
Because he's a good guy to look up to.
Well, it was great because one of the things that Troy did, and I can't wait till the day I get to see and talk to him again, but he would go into the weight room and just throw around some mad weight. You know, I mean, at the time I'm looking at it like, wow, that's pretty impressive. He'd throw, 225 pounds, it's about 100 kilos, and just sets of 10, just repping them out. And then right after that, we'd be going on a 5-mile run, and I mean, he's pushing me. I'm like, holy cow. And then we get in the pool, same thing. And he's like just powering through. And I'm like, dude, I can't keep up with this dude. He's a beast all the way around. No,
nobody can keep up with him.
And I tried. I mean, I could keep up, but there was no way I was keeping up with the weights. Not a chance.
No, that's what I'm saying. This is how he got his nickname. He was a beast, man. Troy was awesome.
Yeah. And a super humble, nice guy too.
Yeah.
Like straight up.
Let me throw out a Shannon Scaffism.
Oh, right? I love it.
So
he's gonna be so happy to hear this right now.
So, old Nine Finger himself, every time he'd start a story, every story started with, so this one time I almost died, and then he'd go in for the story. So it didn't matter what the story was. That's how he started every story, man. It was awesome. I love hearing him tell stories.
Oh my God. Love it. Oh, I love that shop. We had so much fun.
Yeah, it was a great shop.
So the reason I bring this book up is because, again, something else we talk about here all the time. We don't do this job for the awards and the recognition. It's great when they come through and you're like, wow, that was really nice. Thank you for, noting the entire crew for what, the job that we did to go above and beyond to save those that are in need. But there's a case that you had that had no recognition. And according to you and in your book, it was one of the, if not the hardest rescue that you personally had in your career. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
All right. Well, tag, you're it, my friend.
Okay. So it was a shrimp boat called Bandit, and it was a wood vessel, probably 70 feet long. They had a storm roll through. It wasn't any kind of like hurricane or anything. It was just a low pressure that was built up pretty strong out in the Gulf of Mexico. And they started taking on water. So they called, Channel 16. The District 7 picked up in New Orleans, and they bounced it over to Biloxi, I believe it was. And this was out of New Orleans. So this is my first air station. It's one of my first, but this is after the swimmer program been implemented, and we've been doing it for a couple of years. And so we get the word launch ready helicopter, so we go and hop in the helicopter and are headed out. And what had transpired in the meantime is that the Biloxi crew had attempted to send out a 41-footer to effect a rescue, right? Got dewatering pumps on there and a whole ball of wax. They could not get out past the barrier islands because the waves were too high. It was too rough.
Oh, wow.
41s, they're not quite like the 47s that were in use back then, that were self-righting and handled for heavier seas. This is not something that you would expect off the Gulf Coast. So their unit turned them around and sent them back. So we were on our way when that happened, and they called us and let us know we can't get to them. And the watchstander in Biloxi knew where they were. They were outside the barrier islands where the weather was even rougher. And asked them if they felt safe to do so. Could they beach that boat on one of those barrier sandbar islands before it sank? And the captain said, yeah, I guess so. And a gambling ship that happened to be out there, because gamblers are going to gamble no matter what, right? They're overhearing all this, and they're like, yeah, hey man, why don't we the captain of that vessel, and I forget the name of it, called us on the radio and said, "Hey, we'll take our big ass boat and we'll hold off a little ways, but we'll turn sideways in the waves and try to block the wind and waves as much as we can till you guys can get those people off that boat." And so that's what he did. But it was still rocking, man. So anyway, the captain of the shrimp boat, the Bandit, sure enough, just took it full speed, nosed it right up onto Ship Island, which is a little sandbar type island offshore, and just nosed it up as hard as he could. And so by doing that, it's out of the water. It leaned to one side, and it was leaning like that. The waves are still coming across the stern, which is not the best place to take waves. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a low end, all that stuff floating around. And so we pull into a hover, and we can't lower to the stern because it's still awash. And the waves are really, really rocking, man. I'm talking 8, 10, 12-foot breakers, not rollers, because it's coming onto that island. And it's lifting the back end of the boat and setting it down, boom, boom, like that, just beating the daylights out of this wood hull. So they put me down, and I hit the deck, and it's sideways, and I'm reaching over to grab the handrail to keep me upright. And I'm walking on funny on whatever I can find and slip sliding because I'm in a wetsuit. And I go inside the pilot house where all the people are, just, hand over hand myself, open the door, and there's 4 people there. And I'm like, okay, we'll get you guys out of here, blah, blah, blah. I start telling them, what to expect, how we're going to pull this off. And the captain goes, "My wife, Maddie, she's got a heart condition, and she is freaking out, and I'm worried this is going to kill her." And I'm like, crap. Crap. So I call the pilot, and I tell him what we got. And he's like, okay, let's grab Maddie. Let's take her to the hospital, to the shore and drop her off with an ambulance. And got to remember now, the rest of the crew is doing their thing. So co-pilots coordinate the ambulance and so forth, stuff like that. And he said, in the meantime, what we'll do is while we're doing that, we'll also launch the B-2, the backup helicopter from New Orleans, in case we don't get back out here fast enough. So I'm like, okay, that sounds like a plan. So we got, I got some of the crew and the captain to help me carry Maddie out in the basket, took the basket disconnected from the hook, took her into the cabin, put her in it. We carried her back out because the deck was still, tilted like that.
Right.
So then we got Maddie up, and I thought he was going to leave me there. He's like, "No, Jared, you're the only medical guy, so you got to come with us." I'm like, "Yeah, all right, pick me up." And sure enough, they sent down the hook, and I just hooked it up to my harness, and up away we went. We went and successfully, easily dropped her off to an ambulance that was waiting at the airport, picked up, turned around, hauled ass right back out to the thing, and got there before the second helicopter got there. Only now the boat's sitting lower in the water, and there's less of it. So the whole time we're gone, the waves have been picking up and slamming this boat to the sand, just pounding the daylights out of it. And there's not much left on the ass end, and the front end is finally starting to come apart. And I'm like, crap, we got to hurry. And he's like, "You're right. Let's do this." And I think the pilot's name was Tim Rourke. He just turned sideways and just moved me straight over the bow, and Mech dropped me down, and I hit the deck, sliding around all over the place, and it felt spongy. It felt loose. I'm like
all the decks that you're walking on right now.
Yeah, that I'm working on. It was not the same as the first time I did. Dude. And I'm like, crap. So I go and I explain to him, we got to get the hell out of here, and we got to do it fast, right? So I told him I'm not going to disconnect. I'm just going to let the basket hit the deck, and when you see it hit the deck, I want one of you guys to come out of here and hop in that basket, and I'm going to send you out. And so we're all on the same page. I go back out, and I'm explaining to the pilot what I'd like to do, and he's like, "Yep, let's do it." Mech sends a basket down, and as soon as it hits the deck, crew comes out, up and gone. Next one, crew up and gone. Finally, the captain up and gone, right? Now, you got to remember, 65s at that point, they didn't have the better transmissions. They didn't have the better engines. They were very weight limited. Right. That was it. They're not getting Jerry.
Oh, no, dude, what?
So Rourke is like, "Yeah, we're gonna leave you here. The next helicopter's minutes out, just right behind us, Jerry." I'm like, "Yeah, cool, man. We'll take it, do it." And they're gone. They tilted over, and they're gone. So now I'm standing on a boat that I could feel coming apart under my feet. right? I mean, and dude, there is not a quiet like that on the planet. If your work office is underneath a hovering helicopter, that much noise, and then all of a sudden it's not there, you know, that's some serious quiet. So
Bro,
next thing I know, I see the floodlights from the next helicopter. I'm like, thank goodness, because this thing is coming apart. And he pulls into hover the same spot where the first helicopter was, and out comes the hook. Not even a basket, just out comes the hook, man. And so it gets down, and I don't even, you're supposed to let it discharge the electricity so you don't get popped, and that's a good thing to do. So don't let me tell you that it's not. But I was so freaked out that I didn't even wait, man. I just grabbed that thing like that and hooked it up. And as soon as I did, right, the flight mechanic started taking up slack, and I could feel it yank up on it, and I start to come off the deck. Only the deck is following me up. All right. So as I come off, the deck's coming up, which means a wave had lifted what's left of the boat and was coming up with me. Right. So the flight mechanic, seeing that, starts to con the pilot away from the boat. But what that means is now Jerry's in forward flight towards the bow of the boat. Right. And the boat's still following me up as I'm going up, and I'm headed towards the bow of the boat. Well, guess what's on the front of a big shrimp boat? A giant metal stanchion that they tie off to when they're at dock. You know what I mean? A big one of them T-posts on the bow. I'm headed straight for it, man. I'm like, I'm fixing to splat on this giant metal post. And dude, I'm freaking out, man. So I'm like, the only thing I could do is I'm hoping that the flight mechanic gets me above it, and I bring my knees up to my face, man. I'm trying to get my ass out of the way of this pipe I'm headed towards. And I closed my eyes, waiting on the impact, and just waited and waited, and I felt and wind. That was it. Next thing you know, I'm over the top of the island. I feel nothing but wind, boats behind me. Dude, I missed it by inches being splattered on this thing, man. And the flight mechanic is reeling me up as fast as he can. I mean, he's got it two blocked as fast as he can, just hauling ass up. And I get up there, and there's this guy, and his name is John Gordon. We used to call him Flash. Flash Gordon, one of the best flight mechanics.
Convenient.
And Flash is laughing and shaking his head, man. And I get in the helicopter, and I said, "What?" He's like, "I thought you were dead." Laughing about it the whole time.
Oh my God!
Yeah, dude, skin of my teeth, man. Skin of my teeth on that one. Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. Yeah, it was intense. When stuff like that, you feel that against the old breastplate, man. You feel the heart pounding pretty hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jerry, that is sick. Oh man, what a good story. Dude, I love it. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, man. I can't tell everybody like enough. Go get the book, go check it out. Brotherhood of the Fin. Still Amazon, you can get it everywhere, but that's just one of the stories in there. So I'm gonna leave it up to you, Jerry. If you want to share one more story, it's up to you. But other than that, we can transition out to just good advice. Up to you.
All right. So what I would tell you is how the Brotherhood of the Fin came about being the title is I was down in Andros in the Bahamas doing an op-bat, right? Yeah. And it was a day off. And so me and my flight mechanic, because we were air crew, decided we want to go shoot some lobster. So we hooked up to the little morale boat and started driving down the road. We knew we were going to be a little out of bounds, right, as far as where they allowed us to take the boat. And we were headed to a boat ramp down island, a little bit farther down the island. And I was telling him I was having trouble coming up with a title for the book about rescue swimmers that I was working on at the time. And he was like, yeah, man, you guys are like a freaking frat house. Y'all just like a bunch of frat brothers and act like it. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably pretty funny. He says, you should call it Brotherhood of the Fin. I'm like, holy shit, that's good. That's where the title come from. Flight mechanic came up with that.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Jason Lee was his name, man. Jason Lee.
Love it.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the title of the book there, Mr. Jason Lee. Huh?
Yeah. Welcome to the Brotherhood.
Right on.
Yep.
All right, so, Jerry. Well,
that's all I got, man. What else you want to know?
The only thing I want to know is like I said, unless you want to share. Oh, actually, let me ask you this: do you want to share any more rescues that you might have had?
No. Okay. Tons of stories, man. But you got a good sampling.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I like it. All right, in that case, I'll tell you what, man. Let's do this. I would love to hear like all of your years, because you did over 20 years off the top of my head, yeah?
20 years and 1 day, man.
Oh.
And I don't know how they squeeze that extra day out of me.
Oh my God, dude, I love it. All right, in your 20 years of being in the Coast Guard and the majority of being a rescue swimmer, what would you pass on to everybody? Everything that you had and you did, what's the advice you would pass on to everybody?
I would say that to take the medical training more seriously. A lot of swimmers, and I was guilty of this, were more about the rescue, about the physical aspect, about the going in and you know, the adrenaline, you know what I mean? But there are numerous things that as you get older, remember I told you that line, regrets for old men. And if you don't have any, it just means you're not old yet. But I remember wishing now that I am older, that I had been better at the medical part of our training, that I had paid more attention, done better, and provided better care. So I would tell the guys that are up and coming, take that shit serious and, you know, learn it. You know, it's part of what we do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
People are counting on us, not just to get them out of dire straits.
Right. Keep them alive once we get them in the helicopter. Exactly.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. There's a bunch more, but that one's the one that's, you know, things that I would say, you know, I'd love to see us get into fixed wing rescues and stuff like that, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. But you know, you take that stuff seriously so that you're better at your job, you're better at what you do, and you're a better rescue swimmer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that, dude. Thank you, man. I appreciate that one. So, you know, just because you said that, you know, like fixed wing side of things, I want everybody to know this because this is funny. When I met you and I was an airman going through the swimmer program, you and I sat down, we had a conversation, and our conversation was, man, it would be great if we could have two swimmers and an RHI, a little rigid inflatable boat, to drop out of the back of the C-130 to be on scene to stabilize and rescue people and then wait for the helicopter to get us. And we were like, you know, the Air Force PJs, those guys, pararescue guys, they already do this. Why can't we? And I'm like, dude, that would be sick. That's awesome. And that was your idea. I'm just going to throw that out there. You know what? Yeah. Even if it wasn't your idea, I'm giving you credit right now.
Well, you know, it's one of those things where we're watching other guys who are not on call, whose job is not assigned to do that. You know, they're combat rescue, and we're watching them go out and do these things. And it didn't make sense to me. It still doesn't to this day. But, you know, they haven't done it. I don't know why. You know, that's on them.
That's all right. Maybe we just needed to re-spark the idea right now. You and me, Jerry.
There you go. Get the word out.
Seed, dude. Just
plant the seed, man. You never know what might happen.
Oh, brother Jerry, I cannot thank you enough for coming on to the Real Rescue and just telling these amazing stories. I've absolutely loved it. I love seeing you again, man. I know you're down in the Bahamas. I'm going to come down and make a trip down to come see you. So, but until then, dude, thank you again for coming on and sharing it.
No worries, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime, brother. Anytime. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here. Go. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Real ResQ Podcast. Please take a minute to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. I'm pulling chocks and taking off. But before I go, if anyone out there has a rescue story they would be willing to share, I would be humbled and honored to have you on as a guest. Or if you have any questions about rescue or anything else we talk about here, send an email to jason@therealresq.com. That's Jason at TheRealResQ.com. You can also check us out on our web pages, therealresq.com, our Facebook page, and our Instagram page @TheRealResQ. Again, a special thank you to all of you staying on the watch today. Always remember, when that SAR alarm goes off, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. Until next time, fly safe and swim hard.